Hey guys, this is Rick coming at you with Weed to No Basis, the podcast for all things cannabis business related. Are you an entrepreneur? Have something you wanted to create, something you wanted to bring to life in the cannabis industry? Maybe you've always wanted to partake in one of the biggest industries in modern day history. This is the podcast to listen to. Hey guys, this is Rick, and welcome back. This is the next episode, or the following episode, or the first episode, or the 10th episode of Weed to No Basis, depending on where you are in the Weed to No Basis life cycle. I totally just made that up right now. As of now, we've probably recorded 20 to 30 episodes, something like that. What is it, about 30-ish now?
26, 27. 26,
27. Yeah, so we've recorded about, let's just go with 26. By the end of today, this recording, because we're here in my living room, guys. This is HempQ, and we knock out several recordings, and so we're up to about, by the end of today, we'll have about 30. So that's why I said, depending on where you are in the Weed to No Basis life cycle, you may click on a Twitter link or Facebook page and find this episode today, but just so you know, there's got a lot of good stuff. And the reason why you're here, guys, is because the reason why you're here listening or watching, it's because you two are on a Weed to No Basis. And that's one of our taglines. We kind of developed it, it is a play on words, Weed to No Basis, obviously. But yeah, if you're here, it's because you're curious. Maybe you're in the industry, maybe you're still in startup mode, or you're in the ideation phase of a new concept you have for a cannabis startup. Maybe you're a wantrepreneur, and I say that with love and respect. Because before you become an entrepreneur, we're an entrepreneur. We want to be an entrepreneur. And so this show is designed to help you get to that next level, if you will. And we're pretty darn good at it. But listen, guys, here's the thing, is whether this is episode 1 for you, 10 or 30, or maybe if I look into my crystal ball and we have 150 episodes, maybe you just happen to land on this one first. This one today is going to be about the beginning, my beginning, because it's important to know. When we go to a website and we see the About page, this is kind of our live About page right now. That's what this is. This is the live About page. Now, if you go to our website, you are going to see facts about us, things we've done. But today, this is just me talking to you. And at the end of this, guys, if you have any questions or comments, you should know by now I'm pretty transparent. I'm pretty open. Drop them down there. Ask away. By all means, reach out to us. But today's kind of, I like to call it the humble beginning. And just share a little bit about, where I came from. I'm not going to use the word we, guys. I'm going to be very selfish today so that you know a little bit more about me, about Rick, the guy who's hosting Weed to No Basis and where it all started. And I don't mean my cannabis business, where episode 1 started. I mean where I came from, So I'm going to give you some high-level stuff, like 30,000 foot view. And then we're going to kind of dive in relevant points, because even though my story is my story, I bet there's going to be elements of my story where it's going to resonate. It's going to resonate because of the emotion. Maybe you felt sad, glad, mad, afraid, or ashamed. You see, guys, my story is my story, but the emotional elements that go with each of our stories revolve around the same 5 emotions: mad, sad, glad, afraid, or ashamed. And that's really why I wanted to share this, so you know that, honestly, I'm just as human as you. I'm no different, no better, no sexier, no cooler, not better looking, not taller, not shorter, not fatter or skinnier. I'm just a person like you trying to make the biggest difference in the world with this wonderful industry we call cannabis. I was born in East LA, 1967. I know you're thinking, there's no way, Rick, you're in your 50s. You're probably thinking, and I'm not a mind reader, but you may be thinking, Rick, you don't look a day over 32, and I appreciate that. But I was born in 1967 in East LA. And if you don't know East LA, guys, or Southeast LA, it's not necessarily the place where you want to raise a family. Now, wherever you live, whatever city, you have an East LA. Maybe it's the South Side, maybe it's the West Side, whatever it is, but every city has its East LA. That's where I was born. And I was actually conceived on leave. Now, here's what that means, see? My dad was in Vietnam, and he was on leave. This was, I guess, in '66, and my mom flew out to Hawaii to meet him while he was on R&R, and that's where Ricky was conceived, in Hawaii. So one could say I'm of Hawaiian descent. Just kidding. Just kidding. So anyway, my dad goes back to Vietnam. My mom comes home. And obviously, guys, I'm retelling this because I wasn't here. But my dad comes back from Vietnam. And that'll be a different story, guys, when we talk about veterans and PTSD and things like that. I love my dad. My dad's also an achiever. He likes to do things. Doesn't sit still. Came back from Vietnam, Marine Corps sergeant, and bought our first house in East LA. I have a picture of that house too. I took my kids to that house. It's a house that doesn't look, you wouldn't even look twice at. In fact, I would argue that you would never even want to drive into that neighborhood at that point or at this point. Gang-banging neighborhood, guys. And I know you can tell by my accent, I'm a former gang-banger. Of course, I'm just kidding. But my family were Hispanic. We grew up on the same street. And part of my family was legitimate gangbangers. In fact, my cousin was killed in 2007. Older cousin, a few years older. But guys, I was born in East LA, and because my family, my mom and my dad, they had dreams and aspirations, we didn't live there very long. We were the first of our family to move out of that neighborhood. We moved to Cerritos, then Hacienda Heights. Guys, and this is all in Southern California, the LA area. So if you don't know where this is, don't worry about it. Southern Cerritos, Hacienda Heights, and as, of course, I was younger, but then we moved to Northern California, the Monterey Bay area, Salinas actually, and something new, very new was introduced to me, and that was the fact that I became a minority. Let me explain that. You see, I am Hispanic, but because of where our family was headed, guys, and let me just preface before I make that jump, is I wasn't born with the silver spoon in my mouth. I was born with the plastic spoon in my mouth, but my parents ingrained the belief system in me that if I believe that that plastic spoon was silver, I can achieve anything. And because of that mantra growing up, guys, even though I had the proverbial plastic spoon in my mouth, I grew up believing that anything was possible. And then when we moved to Northern California, I found myself a minority who's a minority. And here's what I mean by that. You see, because I'm Hispanic, 100%, there's no Irish, there's no Scottish, I'm not 1/10 Peruvian. My family's from Mexico City, and they migrated here a couple generations ago. Moved to Northern California, guys, and the reason why I was a minority is because there were no other Hispanics in the neighborhood I lived in. And so I had to get used to certain things, and it didn't really impact me as much as a child, because I was 7, 8 years old. Friends are friends. Colorblind was a real thing. You know, you didn't see white or red or black or Mexican. It didn't really dawn on me till a few years into that, where I was called some really derogatory names. Guys, and I'm not saying that to get you all riled up and go beat drums and all that. I'm saying that because I realized that not everybody looks at things the same way. And I had to learn how to deal with folks who looked at me as a minority. I'm going to use this word as a wetback. It was said, and I didn't quite grasp it till later. Either way, guys, maybe you've never experienced that before. Maybe you have never experienced that kind of derogatory statement. Maybe it's, but again, I'm going to go back to the emotions: mad, sad, glad, afraid, or ashamed. You see, because maybe while you didn't have that exact experience, you may have experienced at one point a bit of shame because you realize, am I really less than? Maybe mad. Who were they to call me that name? You see what I'm saying, guys? But life goes on. Life goes on, and here's where I knew I was going to be a healthcare provider. I was about 9 or 10 years old, and one day I couldn't breathe. And this is, again, part of my origin story, guys. Now, again, I couldn't breathe. My parents called the doctor, and they said, oh, Rick's probably got some gas. My parents called me Ricky, but everybody on that side they called me Little Ricky or Rick. And said, put him in a hot tub, like a bath, a hot water, and let it'll dissipate whatever the doctor said. But it didn't go away. Long story short, guys, fast forward, is I had a cyst in my lung. And here I was 9 or 10 years old. I had a better view, understanding of the world and what was going on. In other words, I was conscious of what was around me, and I had half of my lung removed. So there I was, about 9 and 10 years old, having a major thoracotomy, basically. They cut my chest open. And that's honestly where I fell in love with medicine, with caregiving, with healthcare, because of the compassion I felt, because of the people who were delivering the care. There was a point where I asked my parents if I was going to die. Like, I really didn't know. I mean, I was going through a thoracotomy. They were cutting my chest open. Guys, and this was back in the 70s. This was back in the 70s. It's kind of crazy to fathom that. Obviously, everything went okay. But I had half of a lung removed. I have every excuse in the book to not go exercise. I have every excuse in the book to say, I don't want to do that today. Don't you guys know I had a lung removed when I was a kid? But because of how I was raised, it was just another stepping stone. Now, I want you to think about that. Think about maybe the healthcare crisis you've had or things that you believe have held you back. And then ask yourself, are you really being held back by that, or is it here? Born in East LA, moved to NorCal, had half of a lung removed, moved to Texas, fell off my bike, broke my leg. Guys, the point of the origin story is this, is that I share probably the same story you have. I had parents who cared about us, parents who loved us, friends who didn't like us, treated differently, went through broken bones, had medical incidents, things like that. Guys, the point of this is that while I said in the beginning, my story isn't your story, there's still some relevance. Mad, sad, glad, afraid, or ashamed. And it's really those 5 emotions that truly bind us together. Make sense? I proceeded to kind of grow up, if you will. I proceeded to kind of grow up, and because of the way I was raised, I understood that college was in my future. Had to go to college. Not many family members at that time had been to college. My parents did part-time. They never graduated. Grandparents, no, they never went to college. I had a cousin who was in college. So guys, you know what? We were probably one of the first ones in my entire family to attend college. So it was, and then I'm the oldest. So it was expected. I was the oldest. So I did enroll in college after high school. Guys, and I was a solid C student. Just to be clear, I was a solid C student. I got a few A's in physical, in PE. I got home ec, because we used to have home ec back then. So I got a few A's. Then I played on our high school soccer team, but for the most part, I was a solid C student. Went to college and promptly discovered playing pool and drinking beer. Even though I say this tongue in cheek, guys, I could have probably got an A in both of those if they were college courses, but the exact opposite was true. They're not college courses, and I proceeded to flunk out of college. First year, after my freshman year, I flunked out of college, and my parents said, all right, here's the deal, is you had one job to do, and that was go to school, get a degree, get an education, and you failed to do that. So you have 2 options. Get a job, get the hell out of the house, or join the Army. And it literally was like that. Not those verbatim words, but what they really were saying was, we're not paying for your school anymore. If you can't live up to your side of the deal, you're out. And I went and joined the Army. Blew my parents away. Guys, I didn't do it to shock anybody, but I did it because I realized that I had just flunked out of college. I had just failed at something. I was the golden boy. I was the kid that was supposed to succeed in the university, and I failed because I drank too much beer. I didn't even put an effort in. Take that lesson, guys. You see, because it's one thing to drive hard and do your best and put an effort in and surround yourself with folks and then trip and fall and fail. It's another thing to not even put a fucking effort in. And that was a lesson I learned. I didn't even try. So I went and I signed up for the military. I joined the Army, 18 years old. I graduated from high school at 17-year-old. I was about 18, went into the military. And guys, while I don't regret it at all, what I did learn is something that stuck with me for the remainder of my life. 2 things. First thing, make your bed every day. Making your bed every day gives you a win as soon as you get out of bed. You get up, you make your bed, you have had one win for the day. No matter how shitty your day goes, you can always say, I won today because I made my bed. Second thing, guys, was discipline. Discipline can be learned, as evidenced by I was a beer drinking, pool playing, college flunky, that all I cared about was making sure my beer was at the ambient temperature. And what I learned in the Army as far as discipline, guys, was that if you set your mind to it, it can be accomplished. I went from a college dropout to a soldier because of discipline. That lesson carried me into into the next years, the next decades of my life, guys. Discipline. Discipline. Remember, my story's not your story, but the lessons that I'm sharing and that we've learned, and especially the emotion, mad, sad, glad, afraid, or ashamed, guys, those emotions are what make us stronger. Those emotions are what bind us, you and me. Got out, I went to nursing school. Went to nursing school because, remember, I fell in love with the healthcare system when I had my lung removed at 10. And while I didn't know at what point in my life I would become a healthcare provider or what I would be doing, I knew that at some point I would be back in that game. Got my 4-year degree, bachelor degree in nursing, graduated in 1995, guys. And shortly after that was when we launched our first business. I say we because my wife's in the other room right now. We launched the company. Again, that drive of knowing there's something more. Remember? Plastic spoon, but if you believe it's silver, you can actually create a silver spoon. We decided to start a company. Guys, I could go on and on and on. We'll talk more about what those companies did, because now we're going to get a little deeper into the entrepreneurial side of my life. But that's the essence of our origin story. I was born in East LA, not Beverly Hills, not North San Antonio, not the Upper West Side of New York City. I was born in very, very humble beginnings, guys. Not my choice. Not my choice. I didn't choose to be born in that tiny little house in gangbanger territory in East LA. But I did choose to not let that hold me down. I didn't choose to have half of a lung removed when I was 10 years old. I didn't choose to get ill and have half of it because of a cyst. But I did choose to not let that hold me down. I didn't choose to flunk out of college in a way I did. In a way I kind of did, guys. That was a conscious choice. But what I did choose is not to let that failure hold me back. You see, guys, while my story is my story, you too have your own humble beginnings. It's your story. And the thing that binds us, the thing that I'm telling you right now will create the success that you believe you can achieve. You see, guys, the message I'm trying to get across is this, is that we all have our story. We all have our origin story. We all have our humble beginning story. We all have maybe even a reason. There may be in your story a reason why it's okay. It's okay to be second. It's okay to not achieve the pie in the sky because of the thing that happened, or the place you were born, or the friends you had, or the names you were called. If you truly believe that, then I just want you to accept with a smile the position and the place you're in your life. But if you choose to not accept that, if you choose to say, yes, I was called names, yes, I am brown, yes, I am too short, maybe I am fat, if you choose to accept those but not let them hold you down, that's when you succeed. The purpose today, guys, is not to showcase where I'm from and the things and this. The thing is to help you dig into your humble beginnings. And then make the decision. Make the decision. Is where you are today the place where you envisioned you would be? If the answer is yes, then virtual high five. Virtual high five. If the answer is no, if on some level you know there's something more, if on some level you know that you have been playing this story in your head and that's held you back, if on some level you know that you haven't achieved your greatest version of you, then start today. Right now. Like right now. I don't mean turn this off and go think about it. I mean right now. Take an action. Do something. Make a post. In fact, do this. If you're not in the place where you envisioned you would be today, plant your flag, draw your line in the sand, leave a comment, let us know, guys, because it begins with that first step. My humble beginnings, you just heard. Your humble beginnings, guys. I want one day for you to share your story with me. I want one day when we meet at a conference, at an event, at an engagement, at a dinner, at a lunch, whatever, guys, at a happy hour, I want you to be able to walk up and say, Rick, not even thank you. You don't need to thank me, but Rick, because of you sharing your humble beginnings, I was able to rise up. I was able to rise up and transcend the place, the thing where I was, and get here, wherever that is. That's my only ask. Take the step. Thank you for listening today, guys. Really appreciate it. And by all means, guys, I'm always open. I want to know more about you. I want to know more about what makes you tick. I want to know more about how we can get you to the place or help you take that next step to achieve the greatest version of you. Appreciate you tuning in today. It's been a pleasure, as usual, here at Hemp HQ. Of course, there's a lot more to the story. There's a lot more. I mean, life, I'm 51 years old, so if you did the math, there's been a lot of days in there, guys. A lot of stuff, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and stuff that I haven't even shared here, but I wanted to give you the highlights. Appreciate you being here in my living room, HempQ. And remember, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, it's because you two are on a weed-to-know basis. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.